saying is that one of the things you're processing right now is who you'll be as a teacher and how you'll share yoga. And I think these are good questions to be asking, and you don't necessarily have to have answers, right? It's just in the asking of questions that you get to further explore who you are and what yoga means to you and how you might want to share that with other people. And I think I agree with you that there is a line between sharing your genuine passion and enthusiasm for yoga and also meeting people where they're at and respecting what their values and their needs and their goals are, so that we're not imposing our relationship with yoga onto our students who might have a different relationship to yoga, right? And that's something that requires balance, right? I think that it's interesting, Joe, when I hear you talk about being sort of highly motivated and enthusiastic, and maybe that being too much for people. I really felt the same when I started teaching yoga. My first there wasn't as much yoga around when I started, and my first two teachers were really soft spoken, really gentle people. And I felt like a bull in the china shop all the time, that I was so excited about things and so enthusiastic and wanted to try things. And I kind of always felt like too much. And it took a while for me to work out that balance for myself of sharing my enthusiasm and sharing my personality, but not imposing that on my students and making a class about my enthusiasm, but let that enthusiasm kind of lift up my students to a certain extent. And it took work. It took work to develop my teaching strategies so that to find that balance. And it also took work for me to, there were things to overcome, like that feeling that I wasn't yogic enough, or I was too loud to be a yogi, or um, I didn't have the same spiritual values as my teachers did. I felt like not yogic enough or something for a long time, even though I loved my practice and I loved sharing yoga. I felt like it's not so much imposter syndrome, but I felt like there were no examples of a yogi like me around. So I didn't know if, like, can I be a yoga teacher like this? Is this okay? Like, do I have to be float your arms like a butterfly? Because it's not me. I don't want to share yoga like that. And so that took a lot of practice. And then it also took practice for me to not, I get really excited about something new I was studying in yoga, and to be able to share that in a way that was invitational and not impositional. So, like, say I got excited about, developing handstands, to bring that to classes where that's appropriate and leave it out of classes where it's not appropriate, and to invite students to partake in that without making a whole class about my excitement about doing handstands, right? Which can veer a yoga class off course from what the students are really there to experience. So being able to bring that enthusiasm, but temper it so that students' needs are still being met, right? And lots of students don't want to workshop handstands for half an hour. So that's where I figured out how, and that was really my journey into doing yoga teacher training, because I wanted to share more. I loved sharing classes, that, a well-balanced class with an opening and the flow of the practice and the closing and the meditation. But I really wanted to workshop poses and play with things and, like, dig into study. And there wasn't as many opportunities to do that in, the regular all levels drop in, drop out classes that students were coming to. So I found a way to use my enthusiasm by teaching yoga labs and master classes and workshops where I could bring students further into philosophy concepts, chanting, anatomy, playing with poses. And then over time that developed into yoga teacher training. So where when I began teaching yoga, my enthusiasm and eagerness felt like a hindrance or an obstacle. It actually led me to here and being able to take those students who want to on a journey deeper into yoga, right? Um, and that just took balance and observing and listening to my students to ask for
Yeah.
feedback. And some people will be more open to giving feedback than others. And then you have to filter, like you said, that feedback. Is this personal preference or is this something more global that I want to address in my teaching? That's an ongoing process as well, really. Or leading the direction of your teaching practice. But on the other hand, your students are also leading that direction. Want more quiet, we want more restorative, or we want more play, or we want to learn more about philosophy. Um, and so giving people tastes of things and seeing what's tasty to them, right? And then
Yeah.
giving a little bit more. And that's going to really differ from class to class. And like, even if you're teaching more full time, you'll see that the energy of a morning class is vastly different from like a mid-morning class or a lunchtime class versus an after
Yeah.
work class. And what you bring to those
Yeah.
classes is still you, it's still authentically you, but it's a different space to hold. And the teaching strategies you use might be different. The way you sequence a class might be different. The space you leave for things like opening and meditation and closing might be different depending on that. Also, the environments you teach in, whether you're
Yeah.
teaching in a yoga studio or a gym, a yoga studio, you might have a longer period of time for teaching. There's kind of a different vibe. The gym, you probably have 55 minutes to teach your class, and then the next class has to come in the room. And your voice might be competing with the sound of weights hitting the ground and other things going on in the gym. So that's a different space to hold. And then if you're
Yeah.
teaching like corporate classes, or I don't know if either of you have thought about doing private sessions, again, those
Yeah.
are different spaces to hold, and you're bringing something a little bit different, but always authentically you. Said, like they've been
Yeah.
going to yoga classes and following the practice and having those little tastes that you've sprinkled in of philosophy and history and Ayurveda and energetic anatomy and all the other elements of yoga. They've had those tastes and gone, I want something a little bit more, right? And so carrying those students with you into half day retreats, full day retreats, weekend retreats, so that they can start to develop their own understanding of yoga and start to learn more about the practice. There's lots of people out there who are keen to do that. Um,
Yeah.
and there's lots of really affordable ways for you to deliver that as well. And oh, I'm going to run out of time. Hello to
Yep.
those of you who are listening, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you. Thank you so much.